The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. If you are not a current member, please speak to anyone with a name tag and we can answer any questions you have about being a member. You do not have to identify as a woman to be a member. We do also have a voter registrar here and some others. If anyone needs to register to vote, update your address, check the voter roll, anything like that. The League is committed to our DEI practices, and all discussions should keep this in mind. Discrimination or harassment of any kind will not be accepted within the League or during League-hosted events. The League is committed to fostering a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging for all people. We are also looking for volunteers. So again, if you want to volunteer for anything, grab someone with a name tag. Our guest today is Dr. Denita Jones. She is the former DEI director of League of Women Voters Texas and a current board member of League of Women Voters Dallas. She went to Belhaven University and Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, where she majored in public policy and administration. There is a survey on your chair. If you don't mind filling that out before you go, if anyone needs a pen, just let us know. And we will have time at the end for questions. And let's say hello to Denita.
Hello, everyone. Does this work? Is this working?
That one's going to go to the next one.
Okay, but you got me here. Okay. And you all can hear me here? No. Now you can't. No, you can't. Can you hear me now? Now. Right. Can you hear me now? Oh, there we go. I found it. I found the sweet spot. Okay. And it is like holding a hot dog. I did a presentation once and the guy said, hold it like a hot dog. So here we are, hot dog. Yes, I don't have my glasses on because I can't see you. You're rude, okay? Age, here we are. But thank you all for having me. Again, like she said, my name is Denita Jones. I'm a member of League Dallas and was the former DEI director for the state of Texas. And my passion has always been DEI. It has always been organizing communities. It's always been empowering people so that they know that their voice does matter, no matter what the issue is, because only you can organize and speak to the issues affecting yourself, your family, and your community. And so that's always been a part of who I am. And thank you. You know, I had a nice discussion with him. He was like, how did you get in this? So, as my dad pointed out, I have been raising hell since the age of 13. And I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So here we are, still doing it. So today we're going to be talking about Women's Equality Day, which is why I'm in purple. White is always associated with Women's Equality Day and the suffrage movement. However, purple is more unifying. It's inclusive. As you're going to learn through this presentation, the suffrage movement was not inclusive, okay? So here we are. The fight for the ballot continues, 1920, 1965, today, and what's next? So I got two devices working, so bear with me. When we hear that women won the right to vote in 1920, I want us to ask a second question. Which women? The 19th Amendment was unquestionably a major constitutional achievement, but the history becomes more complicated when we look at race, citizenship, and who could actually get to the ballot box. Today's discussion will intentionally center women whose experiences have often been missing from the traditional suffrage story. Oh, I didn't know I did that. Okay, so August 26th, what are we celebrating? August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified. August 26, 1920, the ratification was certified. 1973, Congress designated August 26 as Women's Equality Day. But equality at the ballot box did not arrive for every woman in 1920. The National Archives record that Secretary of State Bainbridge Colby certified the amendment on August 26, 1920. And when you hear people talk about voting rights, and well, that was so long ago. It literally was not. Now, none of us in this room were born in 1920. If you were, I want to talk to you afterwards because I want to know your secret. But it was not that long ago. So I want us to do away with that fallacy that voting rights was so long ago, because it was not. Let's see, what was that? Having a constitutional right and having equal access to exercise that right are not necessarily the same thing. If a law says you have a right, but another law or practice prevents you from exercising that right, do you actually have equality? And so I want this to be kind of interactive. So sometimes I'll pose a question or a thought, and if you, one or two people can talk to that, then we're good. Is that okay? Okay. So like I said, do you actually have equality? One thing is, okay, yeah. And we see that every day, and we've seen that every day for years. Before 1920, we were already organizing. From the 1850s to the 1860s, we had abolition, we had women's rights and suffrage movements intersect. In 1866, we had American Equal Rights Association. The late 1800s, Black women clubs organized around voting and civil rights. In 1896, National Association of Colored Women was formed. In 1913, the women's suffrage procession. And then in 1920, we had the 19th Amendment. The National Archives, for example, a 1916 resolution from Rhode Island Union Colored Women's Clubs asking Congress to secure a federal women's suffrage movement. Hence, here we are. Black women were simultaneously confronted with racism and sexism. So when they say, I always challenge the idea that women were encouraged to join the suffrage movement. Black women were not encouraged to join. Although we had our own suffrage movement happening, our suffrage movement was also not only confronting voting rights, but also confronting racism, also confronting, sexism. Activism often connected to voting rights. There are also broader issues: education. We had to worry about being lynched, economic opportunities, family and community safety, because speaking out brought detriment to your families. So we had to worry about all of those things aside from just trying to get the right to vote or just even trying to be recognized as a person. For many Black women, voting rights weren't an isolated women's issue. The ballot was connected to the survival and advancement of their communities. So the constitutional language of the 19th Amendment, in layman's terms, says the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex. What is prohibited in this statement? So what is prohibited is sex-based denial of voting rights. Okay. What it didn't automatically eliminate was racial discrimination, citizenship restrictions, and discriminatory state practices. This is where the precision matters. Don't say the 19th Amendment gave white women the right to vote. That's an oversimplification. So what we want to say is the amendment prohibited denying voting rights on account of sex, but it didn't erase the other mechanisms used to disenfranchise people. So let's see. Racism inside the suffrage movement. So racial exclusion within the suffrage organizations, political accommodation of white supremacy. That's one that a lot of people don't like to touch on. They had to align themselves with white supremacists just to get their movement going. And so in order to align themselves with white supremacy, who were they neglecting? They were neglecting Asian women. They were neglecting Hispanic women. They were neglecting Black women. Segregation controversy surrounding the 1913 procession. Not sure if you all know, but Black women, women of color in particular, were asked to march in the back of the procession. Not in front, but in the back. And I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was 300 feet behind the other woman. So this is the uncomfortable part of this story about Women's Equality Day. Should be able to hold both celebration and accountability. We are not here to change history. We are here to share the full history. And it's important as members of the League of Women Voters and others that we share that history, that full accountability. Because as I told Diane Tation, who was a former president of the League of Women Voters Dallas, when she asked me to join, I literally said to her 5 years ago, I thought that was for white women. 5 years ago it was 21. And that was my mentality about LWV, because that's all I saw, and they never came into my community. So there's always an intersectionality between race and gender that weren't separate realities for Black women. And Black women didn't simply accept their exclusion. They refused to be erased. These are some of my favorite people. Ida B. Wells was a journalist, anti-lynching activist, and a suffragist. Mary Church Terrell was an educator, a club woman, and a suffragist. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper was an abolitionist, a writer, and a women's rights activist. Mabel Feng Hua Lee was a Chinese American suffrage advocate. Zikala Sa was a writer, indigenous rights activist. So the 1913 procession story, organizers sought to segregate these participants. Just these 5 women alone have so much strength and so much knowledge that would have been a welcome addition to the overall of this movement. But they were cast aside because of the color of their skin and their nationality. Sometimes equality movements themselves have to be challenged to become more equal. So these are some of the challenges. Who could actually reach the ballot? Black women had continuing obstacles like poll taxes, literary tests, intimidation, racial violence. Native women, citizenship status was questioned. We all know what that's still happening to this day. And state voting restrictions. Asian American women, again, citizenships and immigration restrictions. Latino women, discrimination, and in some places, language barriers. And then we have poor women from low socioeconomic backgrounds, financial and administrative barriers. And that last one, that last work, that affected all races, not just women of color. It affected all races. So for some women, it dramatically expanded political participation. And for others, particularly Black women in the Jim Crow South, racial voter suppression remained. So 1921 changed the constitutional protection based on sex. It did not erase America's racial voting system. So here we are, the fight continues. We have 1920, we had the 19th Amendment. 1924, we had the Indian Citizenship Act. 1965, we had the Voting Rights Act. 1975, we had the Voters' Rights Act, language minority protections expanded. And today, voting access remains a public policy debate. So there's a 45-year gap between 1920 and 1965. If we twirl women's history and stop at 1920, whose history disappears? So this is the guiding empowerment that should empower all of us, whether you're a lead member or not, is that stories of Black, Native, Latina, and Asian American women disappear, but they should not disappear. And now that we know better, as they say, you do better. The Voting Rights of 1965, and why does it matter? The Voting Rights of 1965 attacked discriminatory voting practice, strengthened federal voting rights enforcement, and addressed disproportionately the barriers affecting Black voters. If we are discussing women of color and voting, 1965 belongs in our Women's Equality Day story, just as surely as 1920. Literacy tests and other discriminatory mechanisms have been used to prevent Black citizens from registering. We currently see those things happening today. And it's not just for Black women. We have, well, technically yes, because now we have Nigerian descent, we have Ghanaian descent here in the Metroplex, but we also have an influx of other nationalities and ethnicities. And as league members, you know, it's costly to try to put the voter guide in all the different languages, right? But it's something we should strive to do. Everyone should have accessibility to the voter's guide, to their ballot box, to even their ballot, what it is that you can print out your what we call it. You put your name and address in, it gives you your ballot for your area. We should strive to make sure that's accessible. And even when it's not accessible, we should strive to figure out how we can make it successful, right? Women voting in power today. Voting isn't only about participation, it's about power. Women are voters, organizers, election workers, candidates, advocates, movement leaders, mothers. We do all the things. We do all the things. We provide you with. We give you your candidates. We birth your candidates, right? We birth your organizers. We birth your election workers. But yet we are treated as second-class citizens in a nation that we are supposed to have a democratic state. We're supposed to be able to have a voice. But yet we are slowly seeing systematically our voices leading us. What happens when women who were historically excluded from political institutions become voters, organizers, policymakers, and candidates? Political power isn't simply casting a ballot. You should be out there organizing your community, shaping the public agendas, holding officials accountable, and for some of you, running for office. That's not my thing because I don't want to be tethered to that. I like the community, being in community, helping people find their voice, helping communities find their voice, helping communities find their leader from their community. We have an issue with people trying to die in office, okay? Whether it's local, state, or federal, we have an issue with people trying to die in office because they're no longer for the communities that elected them there. They're now striving to complete their legacy. That is the goal now of elected officials, to protect their legacy. This is my legacy. I was this. I have a library named after me. I have a cafeteria named after me. Long gone are the times where we have elected officials that are here because we want them there, because we put them there, and because they're accountable to us. We have forgotten our power. We have forgotten, it's so cliche, but it's the truth, that they work for us. I've spent so many times talking to people who do not realize that they can schedule an appointment with their elected official. They thought that was off limits. They thought only other elected officials can do that. But when you spend the time in the community talking to individuals, you'll see how much of their power that they have lost because they don't have the knowledge. And as league members, it is our duty, and non-members, just everyday citizens, it is our duty to make sure they never forget that power. Everyone's favorite topic. What is the SAVE Act? The core question is, should documentary proof of citizenship be required as part of federal voter registration? Supporters say election integrity and citizenship is verification. We need that. We need to know who you are, where are you coming from, how are you going to vote? And critics, a potential additional burdens for eligible citizens. This is where we should be particularly careful because federal legislation has changed across congressional sessions. In plain language, our purpose isn't to tell you what political position to take. Our responsibility is to understand what a law would do, who could be affected, and whether its implementation affects communities differently. With the SAVE Act, that's me. Sorry, that's on me. With the SAVE Act, would change voter registration from saying I am a U.S. citizen to require eligible voters to provide documentations that prove I am a U.S. citizen. That distinction is the heart of the legislation. There is another important point. Non-citizen voting in federal election is already prohibited by federal law. So that talking point is null and void, right? The debate is therefore not about whether non-citizens should be allowed to vote federally. They're not. The Constitution says they can't, right? So where is this talking point coming from? This is a scare tactic. This is a scare tactic for people that, unlike us, are not political nerds and don't already know that this exists. So it is a fear tactic to make you understand that someone that looks and speaks differently from you do not deserve the right to vote. Please believe, people that know they can't vote don't vote. They don't want the extra headache. They don't want the extra trouble. So those citizens or non-citizens that know they can't vote, they know they can't vote and they don't vote. So saying that the SAVE Act is protecting our democracy from those that will vote illegally is just looking for kids. It's just a bunch of just looking for the children, trying to read the room. It's a lot of BS. It's a lot of BS, and we know this. But again, when you are out in the community and you are talking to individuals, they don't know this. They don't know this. On an average, no one reads a bill. No one reads the summary of a bill because the summary of the bill is actually worse than the bill if you've ever read the summary of a bill. Sometimes you have to go to the bill itself to see what the summary is actually trying to say. The average person does not do this. The average person is taking the information that they get from social media, the news outlets, you, their neighbors, their friends, and their children oftentimes, to determine whether or not they're going to vote in this election or whether or not they're going to take the time to even listen to a political candidate. So who can experience additional documentation on burdens with regards to the SAVE Act? People who change their names after marriage. Typically, men don't take the last name of their wives, right? So who is that affecting? Okay. People without ready access to birth certificate, passports. And if you ask my kids, I still have their birth certificates. And I'm an adult, I should have my birth certificate. Yeah, but y'all are kind of lackadaisical when it comes to documents like that. But who has access to their birth certificate? Yes, the original birth certificate with the raised seal. How many are your transplants? So now I have to go to Mississippi to get my birth certificate because I wasn't born here. Who's going to travel 7 hours to get a birth certificate so they can vote in another state? Exactly. How many people have access to passports? Passports are expensive when you don't have that money to free up. Passports can be expensive, right? So now you need passports for every voting body person in your home to vote. Exactly. Older Americans, rural residents, right? Low-income citizens, people navigating administrative discrepancies. And it's not to say that the SAVE Act is going to diminish the voting capabilities of all of these groups, but somebody in each one of those groups are going to be affected one way or the other, right? Can a policy be neutral on its face but affects groups differently in practice? And so that's where you come in. And that's where DEI comes in. I'm going to get on my DEI spin for a second. When I was at state, I created a document that you could take this document, I think it consisted of 12 questions. And within those 12 questions, when we're looking at the bills that are being proposed, because some people are on those types of committees, right? You can take that document and take the things from that bill and place on that document, right? It will determine who's been affected, what community is being disenfranchised. With that information, you can take it back and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, as you're running for county commissioner, governor, or whatever, it's a big portion of the community being left out. Are you going to address that? We have to start looking at things to the point where we have to start holding people accountable and stop waiting for, the quick retorts or the viral moment that's out there. Because within those viral moments, people are getting left in the crevices. People are getting overlooked because we took something that they said that was kind of cute and kind of funny, and we ran with it. But there were other people that were being affected while we were, in the sharing mode or the reposting mode. The ballot was never simply given. 1920 was a victory. It was not the finish line. We have to know your history, which is what we've done here in a summarily fashion. You have to know your rights. You have to use your voice. And you have to protect democracy. Can we protect democracy? Can we protect election integrity? Absolutely. Accurate voter rolls, eligible voters, public confidence, voting access, reasonable registration procedures. If I can schedule a doctor appointment, visit a doctor without leaving my home, I should be able to do the same thing when registering to vote. There are so many things we can do from the comfort of our home. And you mean to tell me registering to vote is so complex, so out there, that we have to have DOJ involved, we got to have the labor involved, we got to have SpaceX and everybody else involved to make this a thing. Even now, when you go to apply for an apartment, I learned this because my daughter just moved into hers, they scan your photo ID front and back. And then they make you sit in front of the camera on your computer, and they get a 180 view of your face. You have to turn to the left and turn to the right to prevent fraud. So we can't do that for registering to vote. Apartment communities who doesn't have the budget as the federal government can do it. But we can't because it's it's too costly. Listen to the things that they are telling you and then decide for yourself. Is it BS? I was about to say it. Is it BS? Or is it another tool to keep us down, keep us from sharing, keep us from getting people involved? Because if I am told time and time again that I cannot vote, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop going. And because I stop going, guess what? My kids are not going to go. The others that look to me to say, you're not voting, they're not going to vote. We are systematically allowing people to decide that it's not worth it. And that is not okay. Which women won the vote in 1920? White women. Right? Right. The 19th Amendment fundamentally changed American democracy. Women's Equality Day doesn't require us to choose between celebrating progress and telling the truth about exclusion. We can do both. In fact, understanding who had to continue fighting after 1920 gives us a much fuller understanding of what equality actually requires. Let me say that again. Understanding who had to continue fighting after 1920 gives us a much fuller understanding of what equality actually requires. We have people still fighting for that equality today. So my thing to you is, what would our generation add to this story? Thank you. Did I go over? I can't, we good on time? Okay. So any questions, comments, thoughts?
I said again.
Do you view the U.S. Supreme Court as a helpful organization?
Prior to me being able to vote, yes. And I say that loosely simply because our Supreme Court has been stacked. And it's been stacked in not a good way. But I do have faith that at the end they will make the decisions that will be based upon the good of all people. But I am not naive. I know the decks are stacked against people. I'm not naive to that. But I will continue to strive and hope that they will follow what they signed on for, what they pledged their allegiance to. And I hope that way outweighs what they committed in the back door.
What they've done in the 1965 Voter Act.
Yeah.
To repeat, what they've done to the 1965 Voters Act is amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's a prime example of profit over people. Because again, it's about their legacy and what they want to leave behind, not so much what you want to leave behind, not so much what you are trying to do. We are in, God, another cliche. We are in perilous times. Perilous times. We are losing a generation of voters. My youngest is 16. He will be 17 in October. And he said he's glad he's not eligible to vote right now because he wouldn't know what he would do. It's hard to hear that when you've spent pretty much your life empowering people. And I have someone in my home that doesn't feel empowered. So that's a lesson that I have to take. And that's a lesson that I have to listen to determine how do I win him back. And that's what we're up against. We're up against a generation that's already defeated and they haven't lived life yet. So how do you crawl back from that? How do you bring them to the forefront? It's simple. It's not a It's not a whole presentation worth. You listen. You listen with intentionality. You don't listen to defend. If they tell you why they don't want to vote, accept that. And then ask, can you tell me what would help you change your mind? And then listen to that. We can no longer tell children our forefathers fought for the right to vote. That doesn't hold water anymore. That doesn't hold water anymore. Right after George Floyd was murdered, my middle son, he said, I don't understand how you still do what you do. This just happened. It's been happening. I can't go to Whataburger without you calling me 5 times. This is what you go out here and do, and nothing's changed. And I tell my sons, I tell them, it may not change in my lifetime, but the foundation that I'm laying now will hopefully change in your lifetime. So that's how we have to look at this work. You may not see the change, but hopefully our children will see that change. And that's what we're here for. We're here for them not to have to deal with this, not to have to live through these things, right? And it's sad to say, but I accept that I might not see the change that I want to see. I'm okay with that, as long as my children do not have to fight the fights that I've had to fight. My battle has been worth it. Yes, ma'am.
To say that the Postal Service said that it would deliver mail ballots only in states that shared voter data.
Can you repeat that?
That's 14 hours ago, New York Times.
What happened? I couldn't hear. I'm sorry.
The Postal Service said that it would deliver mail ballots only in states that shared voter data.
Yes. And that came from up high. That came from the White House. That came from the White House. If states do not share their voter rolls, the post office will not be mailing their ballots.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to go to court.
Yeah. So there are states that share their voter rolls with the administration. So their voter ballots will be mailed. No issues, no delays. States that did not do that, voter ballots will not be mailed. Now that's probably a fight that's gonna go to court, but I want you to see how strategic that is. Will it go to court and will a decision be made by November? There's a strategy to everything that has been played out.
Yeah.
You think they thought about this the other day? They knew when to say this. They knew when to make it an issue because they knew the steps that states would have to take to halt this. But guess what? We're around the corner from November. You got to have multiple hearings, multiple appeals. You got to go through multiple judges. And the first layer of our judges is probably going to push you back. So by the time November gets here, guess what? We're going to be looking at registrants that don't have their mail-in ballots. You're going to be looking at registrants that are dependent upon those mail-in ballots for whatever reason, whether they're out of the country, they're no longer able to get to a polling location. They no longer have anyone that can get them to a polling location. So those are voters whose ballots won't be counted because they didn't cast one. So there's an intentionality with everything that is happening. And right now, we're just trying to play catch up.
I thought it was interesting. Recently, my husband tried to renew his Texas driver's license, and he's only had one copy of his birth certificate as long as that I've known him, and it was a copy, so they would not renew his driver's license. He's never had a trouble. He's never had a problem in all these years renewing his driver's license. He had a social security card with him. Didn't matter. He had to have the original certified birth certificate just to renew his driver's license.
Mhm. And that's the reality of where we are. That's the reality. Okay, did we die? No. That's the reality of where we are. Many places, my mother was born in a small community in Mississippi. They don't have a courthouse. They don't have an archivist. They don't have the vital records department. So where can she go to get a birth certificate, original? She's got to go to the state. My mother doesn't like to drive. My mother is 85. She's very agile. She still works. She's my aunt's caregiver. But going to Jackson, 3 hours away from her home, is not something that she wants to do. But that's where she would have to go to get her birth certificate. But then she'll have to wait because she can't get it right then because of the year of her birth. So now they got to find it, digitize it, and then send it to her, or have her come back to pick it up, because some places won't allow vital records to be mailed. You have to pick them up, which means there's another trip back to the vital records department in the Capitol to get a birth certificate. These are the obstacles that people are going to be faced, and it's scary.
Now, what can we do as an organization to better show up and be present in communities that are often underrepresented?
What I would tell you to do to show up for communities that are often underrepresented is form a relationship with an organization within that community that's doing similar work to what you're doing. When you go into communities and you want to register people to vote, it's a simple question. It doesn't have to be a survey. Do you have a birth certificate? Do you have a passport? Do you need help getting a birth certificate? Point them in the directions of organizations that are helping people get those documentations that they need. And the sooner the better. Because like right now, we're going into September. You know, it's going to take a minute. There are organizations that help get driver's license, that help get state IDs. Partner with those organizations. But also, my main thing for you, don't go into a community telling them what they need to do. You don't live there, you don't know their struggles, you don't know what they're going through. Do not go into a community and telling them what they need to do. Go in there and ask the community, what do you need from us? That's the biggest help you can do to a community. What do you need from us? If you have a vacancy on your board, if you are missing an issue chair, and there's a community organizer or organization that does all this work on water, on environmental justice, hey, would you like to be our liaison? Fill this gap? You're pulling someone in that's already doing the work, but you're pulling someone in from a community that's underrepresented. Because 9 times out of 10, that community is the one that's struggling with that issue, which is why she took it up.
Anyone else? Ashley's going to wrap us up here.
Yep. Thank you. You want this one?
Sure. I lost my spot here. Oh, thank you. It helped. So thank you everyone for coming today. As we keep getting closer to November elections, we're going to be doing more sessions like this. Our next one is a free public forum. It'll be here at 11 o'clock on September 12th. And we're going to have experts that will offer tips on how to participate in a rally while remaining nonpartisan, how to write letters to the editor that will make an impact, and how to grab the attention of elected officials through letters, emails, and phone calls, and making appointments, as you mentioned. Our next Socializing and Civics event will be at Haggard Library, October 10th. And we're happy to welcome back Lewis Bedford. If you were here the first time he presented, he's an amazing speaker. So he's going to be doing a deep dive into the current state of voting rights in Texas, as well as all things related to the SAVE Act and where it's at in that process in the moment come October. We are currently about $500 short of our midterm election fundraiser to have Vote 411 billboards along I-75. So if anyone feels called to help out, we are open to donations. And that is all I have. Did I miss any?
Yeah, you can go to our website and hit the donate button.
That's it. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.